All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I want to welcome you all here to the Colloquium in the Life Sciences Learn the Truth series, which sets out to set straight some of the public misconceptions about science. I want to start off by telling you a story. Picture a young girl, maybe 9, 10 years old. One day her older sister brings home a college anthropology book. In it were pictures of primitive-looking Cro-Magnons, Neanderthals, with large brows and flat noses, reduced chins. These pictures of our great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers were stunning to this little girl. She was hooked. From that day forward, Eugenie Scott decided she wanted to be an anthropologist. In junior high, she even did a report on Eugene Dubois, who was the discoverer of Peking Man. And you can imagine her teacher was a little bit nervous about a 12-year-old girl talking about the discovery of anything with erectus in the name. That little girl grew up and went on to receive her bachelor's and master's from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, followed by a PhD from the University of Missouri. She also holds 6 honorary degrees from McGill, Rutgers, Mount Holyoke, the University of New Mexico, Ohio State, and University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. In 1974, she joined the University of Kentucky as a physical anthropologist and was able to attend a debate between her mentor, James Gavin, and the young Earth creationist, Duane Gish. And this piqued her interest in the creation-evolution controversy. Dr. Eugenie Scott has spent the last 2 decades on the front lines of a contentious battle over teaching evolution in public schools. In 1980, she was on the forefront of an attempt to prevent creationism from being taught in the public schools of Lexington, Kentucky. And from this grassroots effort, the National Center for Science Education was born. Since then, she has devoted her life to advancing science education and the public understanding of evolution. She's received countless awards for her efforts. In 2009, she became the first ever recipient of the Stephen Jay Gould Prize from the Society for the Study of Evolution. And more recently, the National Academy of Sciences has graced her with its most prestigious award, the Public Welfare Medal. Previous recipients of this medal include people like Norman Borlaug, William T. Golden, and Carl Sagan, and other people also. She's recently released the 2nd edition of her book, Evolution versus Creationism, An Introduction, and in 2006 co-edited Not in Our Classrooms, Why Intelligent Design is Wrong for Our Schools with Glenn Branch. And both of these books are available outside and also at the CSU library afterwards. Eugenie Scott is widely considered to be the leading expert on creationism, including intelligent design, and one of its strongest opponents. She says that much of her job requires coping with science illiteracy in the American public, which we'll be addressing later in the presentation. But first, she will tell us why the fight's not over in Dover. So, would you join me in welcoming Dr. Eugenie Scott?
Thank you very much, Jared. Well, I am going to talk about the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial and its aftermath, but first I really do, wow, there's a whole lot of people here. Hi. I was sitting way over in the corner, you really can't tell from over there. Good to see you all this afternoon. But first I really do need to talk a little bit about evolution, because I have found that the word evolution means a lot of different things to different people, and it's only fair that you know what the word evolution means to me, because you're going to need to know what it means as I talk about it for the rest of the afternoon. Well, not the whole afternoon, but at least for the next hour. You're not going to be here that long after all. Evolution to a scientist is a 3-part idea. The big idea of evolution is that living things have common ancestors. And that is sort of the really big idea of evolution, and evolutionary biologists study it by looking at the processes or mechanisms of evolution, of which Darwin's big idea of natural selection is the most important. But also there are other aspects of evolution, such as non-selective mechanisms of change, such as genetic drift, and other mechanisms that are studied every day. And those are very, very important. We also study the way that the tree of life has branched through time, the patterns of evolutionary change. Here's a phylogeny of bird evolution. These 3 components of evolution are actually independent of one another in the sense that how the tree of life has branched through time really is independent of the mechanisms of evolution. It doesn't matter to someone who studies bird evolution, say, Whether natural selection caused it or some other mechanism caused it, that's not really the concern. Someone who is studying natural selection in fruit flies is not really particularly concerned about necessarily some of the pattern problems. But everybody is concerned about the idea of common ancestry, because that's the linking idea, shall we say, for all people who are studying evolutionary biology. And contra the anti-evolutionists, evolution is not an anti-Christian ideology. It's just a really well-founded scientific idea, well accepted by scientists, but not by the general public, at least in the United States. The British Council conducted a survey in the year 2009, it's Darwin Now survey, conducted a survey asking the question, enough scientific evidence exists to support Charles Darwin's theory of evolution in China, India, Mexico, Great Britain, Spain, Argentina, Russia, so forth. Where's the United States? Well, way down here. We beat Egypt. The United States stands out in the countries surveyed. Some of them developed countries, some of them developing countries. We do stand out on all international surveys as being particularly low in the frequency of acceptance of evolution. This contrasts sharply with the acceptance of evolution by scientists. In this survey by the Pew Foundation, also in 2009, there's a huge difference in the acceptance of evolution by scientists. To answer the question, humans and other living things have evolved over time, the public answered yes 61% of the time, scientists 97% of the time. A very, very large difference. Incidentally, in most surveys of Americans, far fewer than 61% answer yes to that question. This was kind of an anomaly for this Pew study. But just in terms of the comparative data here, that is a pretty substantial difference between the scientist response and the general public response. But certainly there is a great deal of anti-evolutionism out there. I'd like to put to rest one misconception, however, that scientists and professors in general are a bunch of atheists. In this study by Eklund and Scheidel in 2007, the reference is given at the bottom, Social Problems, volume 54, number 2. It's an interesting study if you want to look it up in the library. They surveyed scientists at elite institutions. Very interesting survey. Elite institutions being places like Harvard and Yale and Stanford and Chicago, the very highest levels of universities in the United States. They surveyed them asking a series of very meticulous questions about belief in God. And to the question, I do not believe in God, was answered true by 37.6% of natural scientists and 31.2% of social scientists. Question basically reflecting agnostic beliefs was answered by 29.4% of natural scientists and 31.0% of social scientists. A series of questions reflecting some belief in God. And these are questions like, I believe in a higher power, but it is not God. I believe in God sometimes. I have some doubts, but I believe in God. I have no doubts about God's existence. You can see how carefully they ask these questions. But some belief in God or a higher power. These questions were responded to by natural scientists, 33%, social scientists, 37.8%, rounding up 38%. So although the percentage of scientists who believe in God is lower than that of the general public, by no means is it the case that all scientists are atheists. I think that's an interesting set of statistics. But certainly in the United States, there is a lot of anti-evolutionism. Recently, Ray Comfort, whom some of you may know as a Christian evangelist, distributed copies of Origin of Species on campuses last November, just a few months ago. He had a 50-page introduction, which he wrote. Well, actually, he only wrote part of it. A good part of it was cribbed from some other sources. We encourage students to go out and get free copies of Origin of Species. It's a great book, but we also suggested that perhaps they might like a free bookmark where they could mark off the good part from the perhaps not so good part. There is a reason why we put a banana on the book.